Alrighty then, so a weird place to shoot. Maybe it's extremely windy, so I had to choose some area which is covered, and there's a hole behind me. Somebody dug it. Maybe they'll build something, or maybe they'll just keep digging down into earth. What does that have to do with the title of the video? Intellect, and ways in which intellect allows us to dig ourselves really deep into intellectual things. And this video, I will dedicate it to discussing the limits of intellect and how at the current age that we live in, at the current society that we live in, we don't actually even really think about the fact that, well, hey, maybe your intellect is quite limited. And what I will tell you more is why intellect might be interfering with the whole self-development, self-help, the thing that you're doing when you're trying to kind of improve yourself. Intellect might actually be standing in your way. It might actually be a building block. And by the way, the more intellectual that you are, the bigger are the chances that you are actually doing this. Because a lot of people are doing this, but people with a more fierce intellect like to do it even more. So what am I talking about? So, I've been thinking a lot recently about specific situations that we want to avoid. For example, either they're addictions, bad choices, addictions to specific feelings, inability to do certain things. And I was thinking and thinking, as I usually do, and it dawned to me that, wait a second, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Why am I trying to solve every single problem with intellect? And I mean, I kind of knew this before, and I definitely use this knowledge that intellect is not the only thing to actually advance myself way further than I could only with intellect. But the fact of the matter is, you have to wrap your head around the fact that your intellect is just one part of the equation. In a way, it's only one part of the mind, or whatever you want to call it. It's one part of the whole. This is why you will never solve some problems with your intellect. You know why? Because in order to balance some things out, like, imagine you have a sphere or something, and one side tilts, the intellectual side, right? And you're working on something intellectual, and you're like, yeah, I gotta really push it, and you're pushing it so far that it starts, stuff starts falling down to that side, and it's a mess. And you're like, how do I fix this? Maybe I should push it more on that side. Well, the fact of the matter is not necessarily. What's on the other side, by the way? Well, it can be emotions. It can be, physical body and well-being. It can be your, energetic state and health and all of these things. And a lot of times we like to ignore that, especially, again, I repeat, the intellectual types who think that every single thing can be solved with that little thing, right? So when they live their lives, and when they might be able to solve some equations, they might be able to read a smart book, but then they can't fucking go in a social meeting and interact like normal people. That's this thing, okay? They can't find a partner because they can't connect intimately. They can't, I don't know, get their dick up, or something like that, which happens to overly mind-oriented guys. And they wonder, what's wrong with me? Do I have to intellectually analyze this issue even further? Will that help me? And they're digging a hole just like this one. This one is a building site for a building, so there's use in that. But see, intellect is like a knife. It's like a precision tool, okay? You need the precision tool for, doing very specific things. You don't use the precision tool when you're in a party. You don't use the precision tool when you just want to relax and have fun. You don't use the precision tool when you're just working out or doing stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? Like, see, this is, it might seem very, like, well, yeah, like, what are you saying, right? And no, like, I think we really miss the point, especially as Westerners, especially as with these, putting intellect and what we call rationality as on this, huge block. And I see this, by the way, with a lot of people, especially, again, intellectual people, but any people, by the way, they tend to try to solve all of their problems by intellectualizing the problem away. Now, this literally can't be done with every problem. Different problems, different challenges require different solutions, and intellect is an integral part of it, but it's not the whole picture. And see, this is why, especially when we're talking more about the softer, so to speak, sciences, when like things like, okay, yeah, I mean, I understand that I use my intellect for like my business or my school, university. I mean, that's great. Uh, but your intellect is kind of worth shit if you go to a party and you can't establish a connection with other people and you feel alone and miserable, right? Or if you're just sitting at your room all the time and you're thinking about your problems and how to solve them, when in fact simply going out and doing a good workout would benefit you way more than simply intellectualizing things would. So I would recommend you to think like this, and this might be a real breakthrough if you think about it, that instead of trying, to put everything on that one side of the table, do something completely contradictory. So if you're too intellectual and you're too intellectualizing your problems, you're very in your head, go and start doing some sports which are completely ridiculous. Oh, I'm spitting. Oh, ridiculous. Just work out like you're crazy, or go dance, or go do arts with no like intention of drawing nice, academically correct pictures, but just do whatever the fuck. Buy any musical instrument, just go woo, woo, do, even if you don't know how to do it. See, there's a huge value in that. There's tremendous value in that, and this is what makes life fulfilling, in the sense that it's full on different spectrums. You definitely don't want to be the guy who, or the girl who tries to intellectualize every single thing. This will dig you into a hole, and you will just keep digging, and you're like, what am I supposed to be? I don't know, I just have to figure it out, and you keep digging and keep digging. See, intellect is just a function. I think it's very vague and abstract, because I don't think even our language, the way that we use it, we only kind of think that, the quote, what was that, I think it was Descartes or something, that I think therefore I am. Well, I don't agree with that. That's not, you think because you have a function of thinking. And sorry for the camera shaking as it's really windy and shit. So you don't think therefore you are. Like, if you think, when you think, you kind of identify yourself and you identify the processes that are happening, but that's not who you are. If you just sit down and you start doing deep breaths, you're not really thinking, but you're still here. When you're working out and you are in this flow state, you're not really actively thinking, yet you're still here and you feel good, right? So consider this idea, consider yourself as this, balancing act which is always happening, and that maybe some problems, your social anxieties or whatever, or depressions, that if you try to solve them all the time with only your intellect, you're pushing on the thing which is responsible for only one part of your psyche, only one part of your world understanding, only one part of your effectiveness. You might actually be in an intellectual loop in which you will never step out of. And I truly believe that this is, I think that the sort of a purgatory between being a beginner at these things, where you're intellectualizing everything, and advancing to intermediate or advanced, where you start realizing how every single thing, from the diet, from the sport, from the meditation, from the games that you play and how you play them, impact things greatly. And you don't want these things overlapping. You don't want intellect covering every single thing that you do, because a knife is a knife, and it will cut things open and you will be miserable because of it. Personally, my current thing is reducing intellectual activity drastically. Like, that's the thing that I'm currently working on. Like, literally, I'm working on thinking less. I mean, I have my own specific problems in the sense that I'm always thinking. So I'm scaling it down. I'm instead just going and grooving it, right? I'm instead of meditating or working out or just doing some work without trying to overly intellectualize it. So consider this. You are a balancing act. Your whole life is a balancing act. And if you push only to one side, you get various kinds of mind diseases, so to speak, various kinds of disbalances that really make you miserable. That's because you won't be able to intellectualize your way to a great conversation. I mean, you can use intellect to make a great conversation with another person if you're talking about something really smart, But I'm talking about that connection, that feeling fun and all of that. You won't be able to use your intellect to feel great in your body and feel prepared and energetic. For these things, you will need to actually eat good. You'll need to work out. You'll need to flex all these things. If you have back pain, you won't be able to intellectualize your way out of it. You'll have to do daily exercises if you want it to go away. So this seems pretty intuitive, right? But do you really use it? If you're feeling stressed out, overwhelmed right now, well, why are you thinking about it? The best action would be to go out on a jog or something like that. Balance out these things and use intellect only where it's appropriate. Understand that you're a system of various different parts, and all these parts are equally valuable. Intellect is not higher than emotions. Intellect is not higher than your physical body. Intellect is not higher than your energetic potential. All these things are connected, and if you overuse it, you will have a bad time, as I'm sure a lot of us, most of us know. That's why the depression rates and suicide rates are so high. That's because people are stuck in their intellect. They forgot that they can just go, oh, look at that. It's the sun. It's so beautiful. Wow. There's value in that. There's value in becoming just wow, because that's a function of your mind. It's there for a reason, just like intellect is there for a reason. So don't abuse it. That's my tip to you. Don't abuse intellect. Try out different things, completely different things, completely different ways of approaching. And you might be surprised. You might realize, whoa, so you mean, and you'll probably realize this if you start doing this. Whoa, so all of this overthinking and stress and anxiety is just me indulging in my intellect? Oh my God, so all this time it was just me talking to myself, and I kind of decided for some weird reason that that's me, where I could have not done that. I could have been just more chill and used intellect only, for half of the day instead of the whole day, only when I need it, when I'm working, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just addicted to that. So I hope this was helpful to you. Don't dig yourself a hole with that intellect. That intellect is great, and it's a great ego boost sometimes, but you won't win with it. This is why you can see people who are, of lesser intellect, and you can see it on them, and they're just happy and excited about life all the time. That's because they're not as stupid with their intellect usage as the intellectual people sometimes are. Think about that, and subscribe to my channel, and definitely hit a like and hit a comment if you have a question about this video. Cheers.